What is up, everybody? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Alex here, and today we're going to take a look at leveling up our functions game. We're going to take a look at our previous example so you can kind of tag along and witness the evolution of this thing. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel now so that you don't miss any new uploads. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so in our typical fashion, let's go and take a look at how the system works quickly. Then we're going to take a look at how the database is set up. And from there, we're going to take a look at what is going on with the automation. So now, basically the premise of this level up is the following. What I was not super happy with version 2, and I'm kind of jumping into the automation side of things. I wasn't happy about one main thing. The fact that my list of functions, or rather the questions that I could ask, they were somewhat, like hard-coded to this particular module. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted more. Like, I wanted to be able to have the freedom to control these questions from within Airtable. So version 3 is visually quite different. In terms of the functionality, it's also quite different in the sense that our questions are now becoming document facts as a related table, basically, and you can see them right here. So the idea is, in general terms, that I will press a button and I will get all the answers to my questions that I want to ask, that are these ones, and essentially these questions act as the functions. So let's take a look at how this works. I'm gonna just clear all of these document facts. I'm gonna clear processing. I'm gonna run this once. I'm gonna process the PDF. Hopefully this should work. Here we go. Started processing, and here we go. We're getting answers to the questions that we currently have for that document. So when it's done, it basically tells us when it's complete so that we don't miss anything. And that's basically how it works. So now let's take a look at how the database is set up. All right, so this is kind of different to version 2 in terms of design of the database, but some things remain the same. I do have some hidden fields, but you're not really going to need them. What you will need to replicate this setup is simply put leftmost fields, name, the PDF attachment, obviously, a tick box, process PDF, checkbox, simple, a long text, processing. We need this to know when the system starts and finishes, because otherwise you'll be like waiting for the document fact to actually appear, and is it finished, is it not? It's weird, right? So you need something to tell you that, hey, it's working. And of course, a link to document fact. Let's take a look at document fact. I've got some old facts here. Let me just clear them up. All right, so that's clean. So here we have document facts. Really nothing much is going on in here. We have our name, which is just a concat of the fact title, space dash space, and then the fact. We have our link to our document, which is important. We have our record ID formula, which you kind of need in order to search through the facts that you already have a little bit later. You'll see in the automation part. Then we have fact title, the fact, and a detailed explanation. So if you want to learn a little bit more, because the fact itself is just like a really, to the point version of the detailed explanation. That's why we're using functions, right? The detailed explanation is just like an extra if you want to know a little bit more. So for instance, the fact is, for the projected revenue, that it's $3.6 million at 1 million users, but then you can get a little bit more info. This information can be found on page 7 under the business model section. Great. So if you want to read up on that, there's like more data to support the fact. And that's why we have the detailed explanation field, just a long text, nothing fancy. Questions to ask. So here we have our title. It's important to set up the title in such a way that it's like nice and short. It matches what the question is asking. So for the question of what is the name of the business model of the company, the title will be business model. What is the projected revenue? Projected revenue. Is there a contact email for the founder or CEO? Contact email. So you can't really use question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. Doesn't work. I've tried it. Doesn't work. Your title has to be similar to your question. And yeah, that's basically it. Ignore chat records. We're not using anything out of there. That is just from V2. And I've been too lazy to clean things up. So yeah, without any further delays, let's go and check out what is going on with the automation. So here we are in the make automation. The key differences between version 2 and version 3 are really in 2 places. In version 2, we were looking at this part to give us a list of questions, and of course this part to add the answers in a pigeonhole sort of fashion, which is not really scalable in my opinion. So what version 2 is doing, it looks a little bit less complicated, I think, as well, less intimidating. So yeah, this is version 3. The main core differences here are in 2 key places. Let me showcase that. So this is it. Of course, the top path over here deals with a document that hasn't been processed into chat PDF just yet. And that's why we have this part to do that bit over here. It gets OCR'd, and then we just update the chat PDF source ID. But really, the main difference is this part over here, which essentially takes a look at our questions that we need to ask and checks which questions have been asked. And if it's a question that hasn't been asked, then it asks it. And finally, at the end over here, it basically prints the result if there is a result. The bottom part deals with documents that have been processed, and we have a chat PDF ID for them. But the process is exactly the same. We iterate through our questions, and here we make sure that that question hasn't been answered before. And yeah, finally, it just basically answers it. The final last module deals with just updating the status, to complete. So let's take an even deeper dive into this now that I've explained differences and similarities of the 2 approaches. So typically, we begin with our trigger, and that is our process PDF button. That triggers an automation, as we've done before on this channel. When a record matches conditions, and the condition is process PDF, that record then gets passed into this tiny little script. We've used this script many times. All you have to do is just replace this webhook with your webhook that Make is gonna give you from the webhook module, which is typically the first thing, right? But then don't forget to add your input variable just like so. And don't forget to map your value over here. Just press plus and then map this Airtable record ID, just like I've done here. Once that's set up, don't forget to turn this on. Next, we go into Make. Don't forget to create your webhook module and name it. Next, we are getting a record from our pitchdeck demo database. Just map the record ID over there. That's module 98. I already kind of explained what is happening. First and foremost, we need to get an update to that document to say, hey, we are actually processing, right? So we've started the process of getting the document potentially OCR'd and then answer questions about it or like in path 2, where there is a chat PDF ID in the document, we don't need to OCR it again. We just can proceed with answering the questions. So yeah, again, convert API, that just goes ahead and performs the OCR. It's super simple. Just match the PDF attachment URL from module 98 in there. And yeah, that's that. Then we have our HTTP module here. Just this is our chat PDF. We're basically uploading our URL from here. Don't forget to add your API keys like I've done here. Then we're updating the doc with the OCR check timestamp, and we're adding the source ID from your response from 151. Up until this point, it's exactly the same as version 2. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different. The next module over here, module 250, what we're doing is we're looking through the document facts, and we're saying the doc record ID is equal to the ID of module 98, which is our doc, and the fact title is not empty, right? That then gets aggregated into this array aggregator where we're aggregating the fact title. Following that, we perform a search from all the questions to ask, and essentially we are pulling in all the questions. You can of course limit this, you can add formulas to this, and maybe depending on the type of document you want to ask specific questions. Right now we are dealing with just pitch decks, so we have only just one set of questions for that one type of document. But you could easily get this to work on a single database that has pitch decks, contracts, and for pitch decks you have these questions, for contracts you have these questions. So you can easily expand this if you want to. So in this case, I'm just getting all the questions. And then this is a very important point, super important. What we need to do here, we need to put a filter, just like this. Basically, we're creating a simple array of all the fact titles from this aggregator, and we're saying that this array does not contain this title. Once that's done, what we're doing, and this is really interesting and really important, we are then creating a custom variable. If we take a look at Chat PDF version 2, our previous JSON custom functions thing was huge, only being huge because we had multiple questions that we were asking, like business model, then projected value, then contract. So with this approach, we're only asking really one question at a time. And that makes it scalable because you can ask as many questions as you want because you're not limited. You're only asking one question at a time because you're iterating through them. So here we have this particular simple array structure. It is exactly the same as version 2, only that here I'm replacing the title of the function with the title that I have from my original function, like projected revenue, as you can see, type string, description, and then the question, again from module 252. And that's it. Press OK. Then we make our request to Chat PDF, asking it the question from 252, just like we've done in version 2. And then finally, we jump into 256, about the company, replace the content to replace any quote marks with an empty string. Sometimes it throws them in and it basically gets ChatGPT to crash. It's not really nice. So that's why we have to have this about the company thing like so. Then we open up ChatGPT. We perform a chat completion. Well, basically we're performing a make API call. And yeah, this should be our URL, post, and essentially it's exactly the same call as we had in version 2. Just copy paste this as is. Next, what we have is we're basically replacing, this is interesting, we're replacing out of this call message argument, so over here in choices, message function call arguments, where out of this particular thing, we need to replace the title because it will be in the function, and replace it with the word value, just like I've done here. Then we have a special JSON parser that basically parses the text value out. Really straightforward to set up. You need to press add. If you're setting this up for the first time, press add, generate, and then what you need to paste in here is that result from this particular variable. So essentially it would be this particular part. Like you would have to copy paste this. As soon as you get a result, just copy it and jump into this, press add, generate, paste it in, and then press generate again. Once that's done, just press save. And then don't forget to map that A value from here so that then this gets parsed for you. Finally, we're basically making sure that the value exists. You see how it goes in my sort of example here in the previously pulled data. You see how it goes from this little key value pair to just not mentioned. So what I'm asking for this filter to do now is to make sure that this value actually exists every time. What I'm doing next is I'm just searching in the document facts in Airtable, that document record ID, our document, and the fact title is the actual title back from 252. So that point where I'm actually searching for, if that then doesn't exist, you see how I have this filter over here. If total number of bundles equals to 0, then we go ahead and we create the document fact, and we basically map all the typical values that you would map. The document itself from module 98, the fact title from module 252, the fact, which is the value 259 over here, and the detailed explanation, the data content from ChatGPT. And that's it, basically. The bottom path is exactly the same. It's a carbon copy of this particular path, this particular part of the first path. Just copy paste it down there. Make sure that you add a quick little filter that the OCR check exists and the ChatPDF ID also exists. In the top path, I think I forgot to mention this, your top path should basically trigger based on the premise of OCR check does not exist. In other words, we haven't performed OCR just yet. And the final path doesn't have a filter, doesn't have any filtration, and we're basically just adding processing tag complete to the document to say that, hey, we've finished processing, basically. Let's watch this one more time in action. I'm just gonna run this once. I'm gonna take my document facts. I'm gonna delete them. I'm gonna clear my processing, process my PDF, and we're gonna take a look at how this bad boy runs. We have performed OCR on this before, so now it is going through each question at a time, and you see it searches questions here, and we have 5 questions, so it's passing them one by one. It's basically iterating them, as we like to say, and it's creating records down here. So now if I go back to my Airtable, you can see how it has added all of these document facts against this particular pitch deck. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you very much. If you do have questions, please feel free to ask down in the comments below. I answer as much as I possibly can and as best as I possibly can. And yeah, that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.